There's a sentence I say to business owners that often stops them cold. It's this: your work gave your life meaning long before it gave you money. That idea makes people a bit uncomfortable, especially very successful people, because we've been trained to believe that work is something that you eventually escape, that retirement is the reward, that rest is the destination. Dr. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist, Holocaust survivor, and founder of logotherapy, would tell us something very different. Frankl would say that when people lose their work without replacing its meaning, they don't become free, they become lost. And for business owners who have poured decades of time, energy, and identity into building a company, this truth matters more than we often admit. Dr. Frankl believed that human beings are not driven primarily by pleasure or by power. We're actually driven by meaning. Frankl called this the will to meaning, the deep human need to know that our lives matter, that our efforts serve something beyond ourselves. From Frankl's work, we learn that people find meaning in three primary ways. 1, through work or creative contribution. 2, through love and relationships. And 3rd, through the attitude that we take toward unavoidable suffering. Now, work sits at the very top of that list, not because it earns income, but because it allows us to contribute, to create, and to truly matter. This is why the loss of work, especially meaningful work, can feel like the loss of self. For business owners, work is not just a job. It is responsibility, identity, contribution, community, proof of usefulness. When owners exit their companies, the market often celebrates. But internally, something else can happen. The calendar empties. The phone quiets. The problems that once demanded attention disappear. And suddenly, the question isn't, what do I need to do today? The question becomes, why am I needed at all? Frankl warned about this exact moment. He called it the existential vacuum. The emptiness that appears when meaning is removed but not replaced. It's not depression, it's more like drift. And drift is dangerous for people who were built to contribute. Modern culture tells us a dangerous story. It says work is a burden, retirement is freedom, leisure is fulfillment. Dr. Frankl would say this is exactly backward. Frankl observed that people don't suffer because life demands too much of them. They suffer because life demands too little. When we remove responsibility without replacing purpose, we don't create peace, we create anxiety. That's why so many retired executives and founders feel restless instead of relieved. They didn't lose income, they lost meaning. Now, Frankl never argued that work must be paid employment. He argued that work must be meaningful contribution. It's a critical distinction. After an exit, the work changes, but the need for work does not. The question is no longer, how do I run a company? It becomes, how do I apply my capacity in service of something that matters? Work, in the second wave of your life, becomes mentorship, leadership, stewardship, creation, and guidance. It's not lesser work. In many ways, it's the most important work of all. When you ran a business, your mind was constantly engaged. You're solving problems, anticipating risk, reading people, allocating resources. That mental bandwidth does not shut off when the business sells. It just waits. If left unused, it turns inward and becomes boredom, anxiety, or dissatisfaction. But if aimed outward, it becomes a force for impact. Communities desperately need leaders who can think systematically without personal financial pressure attached. You have that ability now, not because you're wealthy, but because you're experienced. Steve Jobs famously said that he wanted to, quote, make a dent in the universe. For most business owners, they thought that dent was their company. But here's the truth. Your dent does not disappear when the company does. It simply moves. After your exit, you're free to choose where your efforts are going to land. It could be education, entrepreneurship, healthcare, faith-based organizations, civic institutions, nonprofits, economic development. The question is no longer, can I contribute? The question is, where should I aim my contribution? Now, many owners default to philanthropy after their exit. And giving matters, it's good. But money alone rarely changes systems. Dr. Frankl believed meaning comes from responsibility, not comfort. Leadership is responsibility. Serve on boards, mentor more young leaders, advise organizations, strengthen governance. This is where former business owners create outsized impact. Capital helps organizations survive, but leadership helps them thrive. I once worked with a founder who sold his business in the early 60s. He told me, I thought I had earned the right to do nothing. And then 6 months later, he was miserable. Not because he missed the stress, but because he missed being useful. Together, we explored where his skills could still matter. Today, he's mentoring 2 young entrepreneurs. He sits on 2 nonprofit boards, and he advises a regional economic development group. Doug said something that perfectly captures Frankl's insights. My business was how I expressed my purpose, but it was never the purpose itself. In the second wave of life, work can become intentional. It's no longer driven by necessity or ego. It's driven by meaning. This is where work becomes lighter, not because it disappears, but because it aligns. You get to choose when to engage, where to engage, how deeply to engage. And because it's chosen, not required, it begins to carry extraordinary power. We live in a time of fragile institutions and thin leadership pipelines. Unfortunately, experience is leaving faster than it's being replaced. When business owners disengage completely, their communities lose decades of wisdom. But when they stay engaged, selectively and purposefully, entire ecosystems can strengthen. This isn't about staying busy, it's about staying meaningful. Dr. Frankl believed that life is constantly asking us a question. Not, what do you want from life? But rather, what does life want from you now? After your exit, that question becomes unavoidable. For many owners, the answer involves work, not as employment, but as contribution, not as an obligation so much as a calling. If you're approaching an exit or living after one, don't misunderstand this season. This isn't the end of your usefulness. It's the expansion of it. Replace the work that once consumed you with work that now expresses you. Please choose contribution over comfort. Choose purpose over drift. Choose responsibility over retreat. Dr. Frankl taught us that meaning is not found by avoiding responsibility. It's found by embracing it. Your business was just one expression of that responsibility. It doesn't have to be your last. When you redeploy your time, your mental bandwidth, and your leadership towards something that matters, you don't just stay engaged. That's how you make a dent in the universe. If you're interested in learning more about what you heard, please use the link in the description to visit the website, and you can receive the first few chapters of the book for free.